There are four main types of objects that we are going to learn about in an Access database. The first and the most fundamental is the table, which stores our data. So in this example, there is a customers table that contains information about the customers. The columns represent the fields, which are the individual pieces of data. So customer ID, first name, last name, and so on. Scrolling over, and this particular table contains information about customers and boats that they have purchased. The rows represent records, and records are a complete set of information about one entity. So in this case, it's the information about one customer. Down at the bottom of the screen, we have our navigation bar that allows us to navigate through the records. We can go to the very first record, the very last record, and we can create new records. So tables are storing our data. We can also use them to add, edit, and delete data in this way. Every different object has different choices with the view button. So the view button is very important. The datasheet view is this view, the table type view where we can actually see the data. And critical to our database is the design view of any table. So here's the design of the customers table. The first field is customer ID. The data type is auto number. And we see by this little icon up here that customer ID is the primary key for this table. The next field is first name, data type short text. And for each different data type, we have different properties that we can set down at the bottom. If we make any changes to the design of our table, we then need to save those changes. And we can go back to datasheet view to actually see the data stored in the table. The next type of object is a form. And forms, we say, are typically used for data input. So here would be a very simple form to put customer data into the table. We can also use this, of course, to view, edit, and delete the customer data. So forms are thought of primarily as input and viewing of the data. We have a very similar navigation bar down at the bottom, and we can navigate through the records and create new records. With forms, we have three views. We have the form view, which is what we're seeing now. We have the design view, which is where we'll go to, again, build forms and modify the structure of forms. And we have a layout view. Layout view allows us to do some designing and modifying. So for example, sizing objects, changing colors, changing fonts, etc. But it shows the data for us while we are working on the design of the form. So three views that we have with forms. And again, if we make any changes, we would save those changes. I haven't made any changes, so I'm just going to close. Or I guess I did make some changes, but I'm going to say no, I don't want to save them. Reports are primarily thought of as data output. So this is retrieving some data from our customers table and putting it into a useful format. So again, databases store data, which is our raw information, and we want to take that data and turn it into information, make it more useful. So data is the raw pieces of data, and then we want to make that useful and informative, and often we do that through the form of a report. So this is a customer's report with customers and their address and contact information. With reports, we have four different views. We have the report view, which is this one. So it's showing the report in its designed format with the data showing. Again, design view is where we build the structure of the report. Layout view, similar to the layout view in forms, allows us to do some sizing of fields, some formatting, some changes while we see the data. So in design view, we don't see the data. We see strictly the structure. Whereas in layout view, we see the structure and we can make some modifications, but we also see what the data is going to look like. So this can be helpful. And then in reports, we have a fourth view, which is our print preview. So it is important when you design a report, if it's meant to be in a printed form, to design it so that it's going to print appropriately and fit the page, etc. So we have the print preview so that we can check how the report is going to print and make sure that it's using the page and the number of pages, etc., appropriately. And the fourth type of object that we are going to look at is queries. So queries allow us to ask questions of our data or to extract certain data from the database. So this particular query is called customer purchases. And with queries, we have datasheet view, which again looks like a table and shows our data. We have the SQL view, which shows the SQL statement that builds the query. And we have the design view. So this particular query, when we look at the design, what they've done is included certain fields, but it doesn't have any criteria. So the purpose of this query is to show certain fields in a certain order. I guess they don't want to see all the fields from the customers table. They just want certain views and certain data, and we're not looking for any specific criteria. So it's showing basically the customers, their boats, and the price of the boat. So those are the main types of objects and the views that we have available for each type of object. The other two types of objects are more programmatic. They are macros and modules. And macros and modules are when we use Visual Basic for applications to sort of automate our database. So when we're working with objects, often we are going to work on the Create tab. We can create tables, queries, forms, reports, and then our macros and modules are over here.